Trump promised a lightning war. Iran responded with blood and fire. 3 American soldiers dead, the Strait of Hormuz paralyzed, and Tehran refusing any ceasefire on Washington's terms. What was supposed to be a surgical operation is turning into a geopolitical nightmare. Stay until the end, because what's happening right now could change the world. Hit like and subscribe to the channel. In the early hours of February 28, 2026, Donald Trump announced the launch of Operation Epic Fury through a post on Truth Social. There was no address to Congress, no formal statement to the nation, no constitutional process, the kind Americans expect from their presidents before sending young people to die in combat. There was a post on social media at 2 in the morning, and then planes took off with missiles aimed at Iran. I need you to understand what this represents as a historical rupture. Trump is not the first president to take military action without a formal declaration of war. That's far from new in Washington. But the way this operation was conducted, without debate, without public deliberation, without even a press conference, reveals a pattern of behavior that should alarm any citizen, regardless of party. Article 1 of the United States Constitution is unambiguous. The power to declare war belongs to Congress, not to Truth Social, not to Mar-a-Lago. The stated objectives of the operation are 4: prevent Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon, destroy its ballistic arsenal, degrade its terrorist proxy networks, and eliminate its navy. And beneath all of that, a 5th objective, unstated but evident to any serious analyst: regime change. Trump explicitly asked the Iranian people to take care of their own government. That, by any functional definition, is a regime change policy. And every single time the United States has pursued that goal in the Middle East, the results have been disastrous. Let's talk about what actually happened in the first hours. Israel and the United States divided operational responsibilities. Israel conducted leadership decapitation strikes. The U.S. focused on degrading military capability. Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei was confirmed dead. Trump announced it as a victory. But here's the problem with that logic. Killing a leader does not extinguish an institution. It does not dismantle a state. It does not eliminate 47 years of antagonism built around a revolutionary identity. The White House called it peace through strength. But we already have 3 American soldiers dead, confirmed by CENTCOM, and 5 critically wounded. Trump said it could happen again. That phrase, delivered with his characteristic indifference, should stop every American cold. Fallen soldiers are not variables in an equation. They are sons, fathers, citizens. And they died in a war that Congress never authorized. The question is not whether Iran was or remains a real threat. It was. The Iranian nuclear program is a legitimate international security concern. But the way you respond to a threat reveals the character of those who govern. And what we're seeing here is a decision for war made unilaterally, communicated through social media, executed without transparency. And now, with Americans dead on the battlefield while the Middle East goes up in flames. Trump told Axios he envisioned 2 scenarios for Operation Epic Fury. It ends in 2 or 3 days, or he takes care of the whole thing. That statement alone should be studied in any military strategy course, because it reveals not sophisticated planning, it reveals improvisation. It reveals a president who entered a war without a clear exit doctrine. Iran did not collapse. It did not capitulate. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps launched what it called Operation True Promise, waves of drones and ballistic missiles against American bases in Bahrain, Kuwait, and the United Arab Emirates. The Strait of Hormuz, through which between 20 and 25% of all the world's oil and liquefied natural gas passes, is virtually paralyzed. More than 150 tankers are anchored. Global energy markets have already begun to react, and this is only the beginning. Here is what the operations defenders need to answer honestly. What is the plan for the day after? Killing Khamenei does not create a democratic Iran. It does not solve the nuclear question, because the knowledge to build a bomb does not disappear when a leader dies. The infrastructure, even if partially destroyed by Operation Midnight Hammer in June 2025, can be rebuilt. What cannot easily be recovered is the United States' credibility as a diplomatic actor. Think about this. The Trump administration spent months in negotiations with Tehran over limits to the Iranian nuclear program. When those negotiations failed, the response was to bomb. The practical result of that sequence, negotiation followed by military attack, is that any authoritarian regime in the world that is thinking about negotiating with Washington now has a concrete example of what can happen when it agrees to sit at the table. North Korea is watching. Venezuela is watching. China is watching. The ultimate effect of explicitly rejecting diplomacy in favor of force is to incentivize proliferation and make adversaries reluctant to engage in any negotiation with the United States. That is the real strategic cost, far beyond the immediate casualties or the price of oil. On the American domestic political front, the divide is predictable, but there are important nuances. Republicans like Tom Cotton and Lindsey Graham applauded. Senator John Fetterman, a Democrat from Pennsylvania, also expressed support. But most Democrats, led by Hakeem Jeffries, are already planning to force a congressional vote to restrict Trump's ability to continue military operations without legislative authorization. Jeffries was direct. Any further military action requires formal justification before the American people. This is not political obstruction. This is the Constitution working exactly as it was designed to. The war power was not given to the executive by accident. It was placed in Congress deliberately to prevent a single man, by whim or conviction, from leading the country into a conflict with unforeseeable consequences. What we are witnessing today is precisely the scenario the founders tried to prevent. I'm going to be direct about what is at stake here and what is likely not yet being said clearly enough on American television channels. Khamenei's death did not end the conflict. It accelerated the retaliation phase. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is not an institution that depends on a single figure to operate. It is a parallel power structure with tens of billions of dollars in assets, control over vast proxy networks from Lebanon to Yemen, and a retaliation doctrine that does not require hierarchical orders to function. Cell by cell, proxy by proxy, the Iranian response can stretch over weeks, months, and in forms that bear no resemblance to a conventional theater of war. Preliminary reports already indicate attacks against Gulf infrastructure, pressure on oil installations, and the specter of sleeper cell activation on American and European soil. An incident in Austin was mentioned as potentially linked to this network. If confirmed, that represents a brutal qualitative escalation, the war Trump intended to contain in the Middle East arriving on the American continent, and the Strait of Hormuz remains blocked. For Americans who think this is a distant problem, it isn't. When 20% of the global oil and gas supply stops flowing, gas prices rise in the United States. Inflation, which Trump himself promised to fight as his #1 priority, absorbs a considerable external shock. The global economy does not operate in watertight compartments. What happens in the Persian Gulf this week will show up at American gas pumps in the coming weeks. The official White House narrative is one of strength and resolve. The operational reality is more complex. Trump entered this war expecting that the Ayatollah's death would produce a swift surrender or at least an immediate willingness to negotiate. Iran rejected any ceasefire that was not on its own terms. That is not weakness from Tehran. It is the logic of any state facing an invasion. You do not negotiate while your territory is being bombed, unless the conditions are yours, not the aggressors. Trump found himself in a position he clearly had not anticipated with any depth. Iran did not collapse, did not capitulate, did not beg. The Revolutionary Guard said it will continue. Populations in Iran and allied countries have taken to the streets. International diplomatic pressure is mounting, and European allies who have already shown discomfort with American unilateralism over recent years are being placed in an extremely delicate position. What we can say with certainty at this moment is that the objectives Trump declared permanently preventing Iran from having nuclear weapons, degrading its military capabilities, and initiating a regime change process are objectives that, even with superior military power, take years, not days, to produce sustainable results. And the entire history of American military interventions in the Middle East over the past 25 years points to one unambiguous conclusion. The hard part is not getting in. The hard part is getting out with what you set out to achieve still intact. 3 American soldiers are already dead. Trump says it could happen again. The question that Congress, the press, and the American people need to ask right now, urgently, is not whether Iran is dangerous. It's whether this is the right path, conducted in the right way, with the right objectives, and with a real plan for what comes next. If you made it this far, you understand the gravity of what is happening. This conflict is far from over, and the consequences reach well beyond the Middle East. We need to keep talking about this seriously and without misinformation. If this kind of political analysis matters to you, hit like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell. And in the comments, tell me, do you think Trump had a real plan for the day after? Or was it improvisation disguised as strength? I want to read your take.